What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel. All right, we have shown you the 2020 schedule for the Georgia Bulldogs. Now we're going to project what their record could be based off of this schedule. And again, let me be clear, this is not a prediction. This is absolutely not what I'm predicting for this season. It's just what their record would be based on their odds to win each game, really based on the difficulty of their schedule. So let me be clear on that. This is not my prediction for this Georgia team. And let's get back to the schedule and show you what our scale is here. So the way I did this, I mean, I could have went a little bit further and had 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, but there are only so many colors I could use for my code. So green is going to be 99%, blue 80%, purple 60%, red is 1%, 20% is orange, and 40% of yellow. If it's a 50% chance game, we're going to leave it as white. So again, it's not perfect. There are games that are going to be maybe 80% on here where I think it's more like 90%, but there's not a number for that. And again, that's why it's not perfect, but it's just kind of a projection based on the odds to win each game. So we first start with the games that they should absolutely win, the games that are 99%, and really you could even say 100%. You got ETSU, Eastern Tennessee State University, and Louisiana Monroe. Both of those should be wins. I don't think there's really any doubt about that. Both games should be fairly easy for Georgia, but only two of those. And most teams we seem to see, three, maybe even four of these types of games on here for some teams. Georgia only has two, and I guess three would be the number that you would get from some teams. But they play Virginia and Georgia Tech in the non-conference games that they're going to be big favorites in, but they're not, I don't think, anywhere near a 99% chance. And kind of the way we look at this is the games that are 60% are going to be games where I think the spread's going to be between maybe 4 and 7. The 80% games are more like a spread of 8 to 14, and then the 99% here is a spread where I think it's going to be like 15 or more points. And then also just how I kind of think the games would go. So they have a ton of 80% games that they should win, games that they're going to be favored by more than a touchdown in. I think Virginia is one of those games. They play in Atlanta, basically a home game for Georgia. Vanderbilt is a home game for Georgia, and it's Vanderbilt. I mean, you could probably bump that up to 90%, 95% even, but we don't have an option for that. So that does kind of hurt Georgia a little bit as we go through this. Missouri on the road, at least an 80% chance to win that game. South Carolina, I know South Carolina just beat Georgia last year, but I think Georgia's going to have revenge on their minds. They're clearly the better team. They just had an off game last year. That's why I'm putting this game at 80%. Tennessee, I know they're better, but I don't think they're that much better. I think that this is also an 80%. And maybe some of these games are a little lower than 80%. Maybe they're more like 75%, but we're going to round it up to 80%. Kentucky on the road, this is going to be a good football team, but they really haven't shown that they can compete with Georgia in recent years, even when they've been good. So I think Georgia, 80% is pretty safe on that. Georgia Tech, this is a program that's getting better. They're going to be improved, but still Georgia clearly much better. We're going with 80% in that game as well. So the majority of their schedule, they're going to be favored by roughly 80%, or given about an 80% chance to win. A lot of these games, though, like I said, probably more like 90%. But that's what we're going to go with. And so now we look ahead to, or move on to the 60% games. And there's only one. That's Auburn. And normally my background is black here, but because I had the black with the Georgia logo, sorry if it's kind of hard to see these colors. Anyways, Auburn, I'm going with 60%. Auburn's going to be a good football team. It's a rivalry. But Georgia's at home. If it was at Auburn, maybe then we would put this as a 50-50 game. But I think playing in Athens, you got to give Georgia an advantage. So I think, they are around a touchdown favorite in this game. 5, 6, 7 points, something like that. So we're going 60% in that game. And that leaves Alabama and Florida as the final two games. And I think both of these games are going to be close to 50%. I think both of these games could definitely go either way. Obviously at Alabama, very tough game here for Georgia. They have struggled to get it done. Can they finally do it this year? And then Florida, game that's going to probably decide the SEC East. Big game, really good teams going at it there. And I think both of those games are 50-50 games. So the projected record for Georgia actually comes out to 9-3. I was surprised that it was not higher. with all the 80% games on here, but when you do the math, it comes out, and I think the actual number is 9.2 wins. So closer to 10 than 8, but I would be very surprised if this Georgia team did not win at least 10 games this year. You know, they could lose to Alabama and Florida, finish 10-2. But if they did that, I really feel pretty confident that they would win the rest of their games. But then again, Auburn's going to be a pretty tough game. South Carolina on the road. Tennessee, there are some challenges on the schedule, and they could trip up somewhere else. So 9-3 is what the odds say. I'm definitely going over that. I think this team wins 10 or 11 games most likely. But our projection, based off of the difficulty of their schedule, which is a pretty tough schedule, they have Georgia going 9-3. So that's their projected record based off of the schedule for 2020. Thank you for watching this video. If you're an SEC football fan, please subscribe to the channel. Leave us your thoughts down in the comments below. And for the latest in SEC football, keep it right here.